Hey, all right, shalom, shalom. I want to start off by giving all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahweh Shai, by Hashem, Rakak Wadash. I want to say and give double honors to the apostles and the bishop, elders, a great millstone for teaching us his word in truth and sincerity and for ruling well. And salutations to my fellow Akim, the elect, the hopeful elect, the elect. Lord willing will be some of those men and women, starting off with the 144,000 prophets, all right, who will, in these last days, be out prophesying and preaching, risking our lives, and to spread the gospel, the scriptures to the Israelites. I am brother Gabar Yahawada from GMS Hawaii, coming to you with another quick lesson, and it was inspired by this clip that I'm about to play for you real quick. I went and saw the Gladiator movie probably like a week ago, maybe like a week or two ago, something like that. And it was all right. It was okay. It was entertainment. But if you know history, if you have any understanding of history, especially during the period of Mike Crinus, who Denzel Washington played, or even Caracalla and his brother Getta, who were the sons of Septimius Severus, right? You'll know that Esau did something. He took something called creative licensing. Basically, he just lied, and everything you learn in this society is through the lens of our captors, the white man, the so-called white man, Esau, Edom, right? So that's why I entitled this lesson, White Supremacy Used to Erase the Memory of the Israelites. And that's exactly what they use white supremacy to do, right? Whenever they push history, whenever they talk about the past, and they refer to these great nations or great people, they're always attributed to that of a so-called white man, and it's not. And even when these scholars try to, basically try to discover the truth, they still won't apply it to that of the so-called Negro, which in reality, during the Middle Ages, we, the so-called Negroes, West Indians and Haitians of the tribes of Israel, right, we were in control of the known world for 1,000 years, right, for 1,000 years, and that was prophesied in the scriptures. For 1,000 years, Esau was nothing. Right after the fall of the Roman Empire, I think they call it the Western Roman Empire, right? The pagan Roman Empire. After it fell, Esau wasn't on the scene as a people, right? We, the Israelites that were living in the Roman provinces and whatnot, we became the ruling power. We became the ruling class. We became the nobility, and it was before Septimius Severus. You can go back to Nerva. You can go back to Marcus Aurelius, his son Commodus, right? A great distinction between the Israelites ruling and the Edomites that was ruling. And first and foremost, that we had beards on our faces. That's what that was our thing, right? I think all only like one or two Roman emperors, Edomite Roman emperors, wore a beard. I believe Nero wore a small beard, but he wasn't an Israelite. He was an Edomite, and so they came out with this movie Gladiator 2, and they were pushing this vibration of white supremacy throughout the movie, and so much so that when you make characters who they originally were in the ancient world, the so-called white man gets mad. You've seen this happen with the movie Anne Boleyn, which Anne Boleyn was a black woman, right? King Henry VIII was a black man. Queen Elizabeth was described as being that of a so-called black woman. Swarthy, right? King Charles I, I believe King Charles I and II, both of them were compared to be that of so-called black men, right? But when you look them up on Google, when you hear about them in pop culture, they always refer to these people as so-called white people, and they weren't. All right, and that's what I kind of want to focus on today via this clip from this movie, Gladiator 2. All right, which they had what's this guy? Denzel Washington playing a key role in that movie. He was basically the antagonist of the movie, right? And then they had a so-called white man overcome him in the end of that movie, right? But in reality, we were on top at one point, and then we got here where we at today. And so again, the history that we receive today in the modern world is received through the eyes and lens of our captors, that are the so-called white men. But like the scripture says this, let me get this precept real quick before I play this before I play this clip. Let me get this precept right. It says their tongue, I believe it's Psalm 68. Let me get it real quick. I'm just gonna bring it up. You can't see it because I'm sharing this video right now, but just bear with me, brothers. This Psalms Salakia. Yeah. That's not it. Salakia. Just bear with me, brothers. This is Psalm 64 and 8. Hey, the water, my brother. The brother GMS 4 wins by Thumb Yum Yum posted it up. Matter of fact, I'll just share it since he posted it up. Right? This is I was looking for this precept and the brother posted it. It says, so they shall make their own tongue to fall upon themselves. All that see them shall flee away. So you got truthers or these Edomites, these scholars who decide to be honest for a chance in some of their speech, right? They'll push the truth about the history, but the world is so steeped in white supremacy, nobody wants to believe it, right? It's unfathomable to the so-called white man, especially you unlearned individuals, to ever see the so-called Negro in a position of power, right? You've had us destroyed. You had us in captivity for the last man. They say 400, but it's way more than that, because that's just the American slavery. But you had Jake ruling in Slovakia. You had Jake in captivity, even during the time when Jake was in power, right? You had Jakes coming from Angola, going to Guinea, going to Seville, Spain, right? You can read about that in the book of Nature Knows No Color Line, right? You had Israelites who actually looked, well, they called us Jews back then, but we were so-called black people, but nobody wants to believe that, right? We're told in this society that if you're a so-called Negro or you look like a so-called Negro, you're African. That's what they reduce you to, African, right? Then they reduce you to that of a slave. Your history started in the world via slavery, which that's a total lie. That's an absolute fucking falsehood. So you get these Edomites that will say, hey, look, these people are this, but you can tell the lies in them. They won't tell the full truth because the truth is not in them, right? So real quick, let me play this real quick.
General Acacius, there are victories yet still to come.
The two young princes, Gaeta and Caracalla, are portrayed as white, while Denzel Washington, who is black, portrays Macrinus. Both Caracalla and Gaeta and Macrinus were of African origin, North Africa, and in real life they probably would have looked much more similar to each other than they're portrayed on screen. This feeds into a general racial problem that we see in most Roman world movies, where the people who are not in charge are people of color. But actually, in the Roman Empire, particularly at this period, we see that people of color were pretty common throughout the Roman Empire, and they did have roles that were pretty important throughout Rome. In particular, at this period, we have a whole empire, an imperial family that's descended from North Africa on one side and Syria on the other. So certainly the rulers in Rome at this stage are people we would consider brown.
Yeah, and Denzel Washington is not black, right? They'll give the credit to the Arabs. Oh, you're a light-skinned Arab. Or they'll give that credit to people of color that they claim was ruling, right? But they won't say that, hey, this dude was a so-called black man. What Septimius Severus was that of a so-called black man. When you look at what's my man named Hannibal Barca from the country of Carthage, which is now modern day Tunis, who was defeated by Leo Scipio Africanus, and then they raced his whole country to the ground. There was so-called black men, right? Because the Arabs didn't get into North Africa until like the 700s, man. Right? The Arabs didn't come. They didn't conquest. They didn't conquest North Africa, right? Up until that point, they didn't conquest Egypt then, right? It was still full of them fucking Hamites, man. And you had Israelite Jews living in Alexandria Alexandria, Egypt for a long time, long periods of time. Even during the time of Yahushua, which Yahushua, he lived during the Roman Empire. Okay, but they won't give the credit to us. And this goes to Esau's lies, man. Somebody said, it says, yet everyone be mad at me for moving like I'm above shit. It's in my genes, and I'm just playing my role. Which we as Israelites, we supposed to be above these people. It says, she says brown but not black. Well, we're not black. You know, our skin is different variations of brown. Denzel Washington. Let me
Another cases. There are victories yet still to come.
The two young princes, Geta and Caracalla, are portrayed as white, while Denzel Washington, who is black.
Well, he's not black. Black is a modern term that's used to describe people who you call of African or Negro descent, right? But our skin is brown. It's not black. But like this dude said right here, she says brown but not black. Even in speaking the truth, they can't be honest. Why? Because the scripture says there's no truth in them. When he speak of a lie, he speak of his own self. What's that? St. John 8? I forget the verse. But that's what Esau does. They won't admit it because they don't want you to have any understanding of your superiority towards them. They want us as the nation of Israel, starting with the so-called Negro, West Indian, Haitian, Latino, Native American. They want you to just think that, you know, you're whatever they say you are, right? You're like them. You're like unto the heathen. But we're above these people. The Lord created us to be above these people. And for a time period in this world, we were. 1,000 years is a long time, bro. Right? You're talking about 1,000 long years from the fall of the pagan Roman Empire. Then you had what was called the Holy Roman Empire. Then you had the Middle Ages. All of that's 1,000-year period, bro. To so much so that even when these Edomites were coming into power, you still had black wealthy families, noble families ruling, you know, with input, who had there's a word I wanted to use, but who had prestige amongst these different people, right? So he says, even in speaking truth, they can't be honest. People of color is a bullshit ambiguous term. Exactly, right? They'll say people of color, they'll call you black, because they want to attribute people of color to all these different nations that don't look so-called white, when you just tell the honest truth that these are Negroes ruling, bro. So Septimius Severus, all throughout history, is known as that of a so-called black man. Yeah, he had a Syrian wife, but them boys that came out from him, man, they weren't fucking Edomites, bro. Like they showed here, them powdery-faced Edomites, man. You know, they weren't them people. It says term created by who are our enemies to rob our people of our true heritage, economic dues and rights. I truly hate the term. As a native black man, nigga Jake believes that they're a native to America, which some of you Jakes are. Some of you Jakes are not even Negroes. You're what they call Native Americans, man. Right? I never refer to myself or our people using that phrase. Well, we're the Israelites. It says, just like they portrayed Jesus as a white man, but Jesus himself told John to write down what he sees in a book of Revelation. John describes our Messiah in Revelation 1:14. His head and his hairs were white like wool, white as snow, and his eyes were as the flame of fire. Revelation 1:15. And his feet like unto brass, as if they burn in a fire in the furnace. And his voice as the sound of many waters. It says Jesus Christ is black. Well, his name is Yahushua. That's the first thing. And he is what you would call or deem a so-called black man. But they're not going to tell you that, because white supremacy is used to erase our memory from the earth. That's what they use it for. Later, white folk will be crying when there is a multicultural representation in one of their movies. But they were also the ones trying to boycott this movie because there is a powerful black man in Rome that finds his way to rule Rome. They can keep crying, womp womp. Rome first emperor Septimius Severus was black from North Africa, and he was Hannibal Barca, which I mentioned him. and the Carthaginians were black Africans, which really they were Israelites. The Carthaginians were Israelites. Hannibal Barker, that's a Hebrew name, right? Which means lightning, right? It means something, I forget, blessed too. It also means blessed too, Barak, man. Okay, but just because you from North, just because you from the land of you live in the land of Ham, which they call Africa, it don't mean that you're so-called black. That term was only given to the what you call the so-called Negroes, right? And they don't want to admit that. They don't want to admit anything that has anything to do with the truth. All right. Okay. Let me share this. Salakia, brothers. Bear with me. I gotta share my these precepts, and I got some more information. Okay. Salakia. Just bear with me, brothers. Share screen, Windows, bam. Right. So again, they used this white supremacy to try to erase our memory off the earth. Right. This is the book of Psalms 83, and I'll start at 1. The points in 3 and 4. Right. It says, a song of Psalms of Asaph. Keep not thy silence, O Most High. Hold not thy peace, and be not still, O Heavenly Father. For lo, thine enemies make a tumult. They that hate thee have lifted up the head. Who hates the Lord? Beyond 2/3 of his own people. These nations don't deal with the Lord because he don't have a relationship with them. They don't know the Heavenly Father and the Son. They don't know Yahweh B'Shem Rashai. The Lord is not dealing with these nations the way he deals with the nation of Israel. And so they hate the Lord for that. Right? They hate the Lord for the order and the righteousness that he brings. And they lifted their head up in pride. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thy hidden ones. Who are the Lord's people? You so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, Seminole Indians, and people that go back to us on your father's side. These nations, starting with the nation of Edom, which they're gonna give a list. They've taken crafty counsel against us, the Lord's people, the Israelites. One of those crafty counsels is to erase our memory from history, right? Even though there's a plethora of proof that we were in power, we were in rulership. Not everybody that's a so-called Negro was of a noble house. And just because Jake was of nobility back then, it don't mean that Jake was in a righteous mindset. But you had men like King James, who was driven to, by the spirit of the Yahweh B'Shem Rashai, to translate the Holy Bible into what they call the King's English, because we was going to need that in the future. He didn't know that, but he was driven to authorize the translation of it, right? And King James is a so-called black man, and no, he was not a homosexual, right? They'll use these different terms and these different ideas about men of the past to what defame their character, right? And that's part of crafty counsel too. You got something called iconoclasm, which Renaissance art is rife with iconoclasm, which basically is destroying the images. Icon is image, class, or clasm is destroy, right? So they destroyed these dark images, and they created these Edomite images, right? They used their television and movies, and they use their literature, because most people don't read books today. Especially you Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, very few of you actually read books of substance, especially regarding the history in the past. So what they do, a lot of information you get is via social media, is via other forms of media like movie, television, that kind of shit. But a lot of that shit is skewed to favor the people that are in power, which is the so-called white man. So it says they have taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, come, let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. Now, you hear the term Israel all the time, but you don't never hear the term one, Yasha Allah, which that's the original name of the Israelites, Yasha Allah. He is a prince of the power. You don't hear that, and then you don't hear us as a nation, so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans being put as a nation. They tell us that we're separate. Right, you got the Spanish-speaking tribes, you got the Portuguese-speaking tribes, you got the English-speaking tribes, French-speaking tribes, or what have you, right? And they'll say, "Oh, we're separate." Meanwhile, we're catching the same hell. We got the same enemy. We got the same spirit on us, but they say that we're separate and we're not. Okay, that's called crafty counsel. That's them cutting us off from being a nation. You're African, and they focus that. They push all their energy. You had the fathers. Who is the fathers? Who are the fathers? Right, the fathers of African studies. Right. Let's look at that. Who are the fathers of African studies? Right. Right. And there were small hats. Melville J. Herskovitz is widely considered the father of African studies. So you got an Edomite telling you who you are. And in the African studies bullshit was nothing more than a tool used to lie and to spread falsehoods about who we truly are as Israelites, right? They push that African shit, African this, African that. So Melville Herskovitz is widely considered the father of African studies due to his significant contribution to establish African and African diaspora studies in American academia, particularly through his work as Northwestern University, where he founded the program of African studies. Other key figures in the field include Carter G. Woodson, W.E.B. Du Bois, Nathan Hur, who is often called the father of Black studies. And you had another dude named Boaz, I forget his name, but Boaz somebody. His name was Boaz, but these are nothing but Amalekites. You let an Amalekite tell you your history, right? These dudes are going to tell you the truth. They're not going to tell you that you were the Israelites. These are, they're not going to tell us that. They tell you that you're African and your history goes back to Africa, and it doesn't. We were a vast majority of the Southern Kingdom dwelt in Africa after what? After Roman persecution of 70 AD, when our land was razed to the ground, right? And we had to flee. But you had men like Melville Herskovitz that pushed that African studies bullshit, right? Which is nothing more than a lie. Yeah, Franz Boas, this is the dude. The other guy, Franz Uri Boas, was a German-American anthropologist and ethnomusicologist. He is a pioneer of modern anthropology, right? These are nothing but the father of American anthropology was Franz Uri Boas, man. These are all Edomites telling you who you are. And that's a part of that crafty counsel so that you won't be a nation, right? Mind you, ain't nothing standing up in Africa right now. And everything that's great that ever came out of that continent, it's attributed to Israelites. For real, when you keep it on 100, go back to our forefather Joseph, right? Through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shai made ancient Egypt powerful like that. You know what I'm saying? And then they brought the Israelites in there, and then after 30 years, 400 years, we was fucking slaves over there, right? Catching nothing but hell. But our people have a love. What do they call this? Like a romantic love for Egypt. But why do they have that? Because of men like Franz Boas, Melville Herskovitz, people like this, right? Let me go back to this dude. People like Franz Boas, Melville Herskovitz, right? Who push that spirit of African this, African that. But we ain't African. And just because you brown don't make you the same. You similar complexion to somebody don't make you of them people, right? So it says back in Psalms 83, they have said, "Come, let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Yasha Allah may be no more in remembrance. For they have consulted together with one consent. They are a confederate against these," these are all these nations. All these nations are a confederate against us, right? From their higher ups to their lessers. From the scholars to the economists, all them people, they're used to deceive our people. It says the tabernacles of Edom, that's the first one, right? Enemy number one, Esau, Edom, the so-called white man. The Ishmaelites, them fucking Arabs, man. Moab, the so-called Chinese today. The Hagareans, right? I believe that they're either they're Arab tribe too. The Hagareans, Gabal, which is come from out of Edom, and Ammon, which is the so-called Japanese. And Amalek, the so-called Jew, the small hats, the Philistines, these are the real Africans, them fucking tall ass, Ubangi, Sunnis, dirty, ashy ass, Them motherfuckers is black. You know what I'm saying? Which they really just darker browns and shit. But it's the Philistines with the inhabitants of Tyre, right? Ashur, them fucking Assyrians, all are also joined with them. They have hope in the children of Lot, Salah. So these nations, they come together and they plotted against us. And the one that's in power today, the so-called white man, he uses his so-called white supremacy, which he's nothing supreme about him. But he the one that owns everything. He owns these industries that they push these movies out. Every movie, I'm 45. Every movie I've ever seen about the one you ignorantly call Jesus Christ is that of a so-called white man. I remember one of my favorite movies coming up was the 10 Commandments. And that shit was a bunch of Edomites in there. Playing dark face, dressing up in blackface, or dressing up or claiming to be the Lord's people looking so-called white. Right? They even had the Midianites looking like so-called white people dressed up in brown face, man, in that movie. I think they had like 2 black people, 2 real Jakes in it, and they had them playing Ethiopians. You know what I mean? But outside of that, everything is pushed through the lens of what? White supremacy. They call it whitewashing. What does the term whitewash? Whitewashing. Whitewashing has multiple meanings, including covering up or explaining away. The whitewash is to hide or gloss over something such as scandal, crime, or vice. Casting white actors in non-white roles. In the film industry, whitewashing is when white actors are cast in roles that are based on non-white people or characters. This include roles of Asian descent or African American roles. You see, and they do that shit all the time, right? Either they whitewashing or they playing you, trying to have you think that the white man is the hero, right? And in reality, he's not, right? And when I watched this movie, I already knew off the bat, I already knew that Gata and Caracalla wasn't white. They weren't Edomites at all, okay? But they ain't gonna tell you that. This is the book of Revelation, chapter 20. I'm gonna start at 1. It says Satan bound. It's not talking about the spiritual demon Satan. It's talking about Esau, Edom, the adversary, right? Revelation 20 and 1. And I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand. And then that bottomless pit is Europe, right? That bottomless pit is Europe because it doesn't have a whole bunch of resources like the rest of the world has. It's not abundant in those things, right? It says, and he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years. Now this is during the Middle Ages period, right? You look up how long. Sometimes they changed it. How long did the Middle Ages last? Right? Look up. Oh, there it is. 1,000 years. So this is that 1,000-year period spoken about in the book of Revelation 20 and 1 and 2, right? And it says again, and he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years. This is this period right here. The Middle Ages, also called the medieval period, right, lasted roughly 1,000 years, spanning from around the 5th century to the late 15th century, generally considered the begin with the fall of the Western Roman Empire and the end with the start of the Renaissance, because that's when this man came back into power during the time of the Renaissance period. Okay. So for this 1,000-year period, the so-called white man, he wasn't a people on the earth. He was here. He was the wild man. You had so many people living in the fucking wilderness like beasts. You can read about that in the book of Job, right? You had them scattered in other places, but they weren't the ruling power on the earth. They were shut down after the fall of the Western Roman Empire, right? Let me see who was the last emperor. Who was the last Slovakia? Who was the last Western Roman Empire, right? So this is the last emperor of the Western Roman Empire was Romulus Augustus. He was deposed by the Germanic leader Odoacer in 476, marking the end of the Western Roman Empire. But I'm sure that these are people of color too, because you had let me see, list Roman emperors, right? List of Roman emperors right here, right? These are Edomites from this is Augustus, right? I'm just going down right here. So you had Augustus, with Caesar Augustus, was Julio Claudian dynasty. Caesar Augustus, I think he came after what's his name? What's this dude name? Julius Caesar. Then you had Tiberius, Caesar Augustus. These are all Edomites. Caligula, Claudius, Nero, which this is Donald Trump today, right? Then you said the year of the four emperors. You had Galba, Otho, Vitellius. That's three. And then I think Vespasian was part of that, right? Which some of these men could have been Jakes. I believe Vitellius and Otho might have been, even Galba. But anyway, then you had Vespasian, Edomite. This nigga looked like a Lyndon Baines Johnson, bro. And then there's Titus and Domitian, right? And this was the last of the Edomite rulership, really, with Domitian. And then you had Jakes coming into power, right? They paid him as so-called white men, but these are Jakes. You got Nerva, which he was a so-called Negro, Trajan, Hadrian, Antonius Pius, Marcus Aurelius, another Jake, Lucius Varius, right? Jakes, Commodus, this is Marcus Aurelius' son. Then you had Pertinax, then Didius Julianus, Septimius Severus. They paid him as a so-called white man, but he was a black man. And we're talking about his sons, Geta and Caracalla, right? Caracalla was his son. Geta was his son, and they were ruling together, right? I think Geta might have killed Caracalla, or Caracalla might have killed Geta. One of them, right? I believe it was Geta that got put to death. Right. Then you had Micranius. This is the individual that what's my man name? Denzel Washington played. Micranius. It says Praetorian prefect of Caracalla, accepted as emperor by the army and the Senate after having arranged his predecessor's death in fear of his own life. Right. And you can watch that in that movie Gladiator 2. Right. And from that point on, it was Jakes ruling that shit. Right. So going back into this, right, it says that 1,000-year period. This is spoken about in the Bible, right? Going back into Revelation 20 and 20 and 2. And he laid hold on a dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years, and cast him into the bottomless pit, and shut him up, and set a seal upon him, that he should deceive the nations no more. Right? So he wasn't in power. He wasn't in power enough to spread those lies and deceit across the earth no more at that time. Till 1,000 years should be fulfilled. And after that, he must be loose a little season. And that's what you call the Renaissance period, right? Look at the Salakia. The I don't spell this like period. I know it's going to fix it for me. Right. The Renaissance period is when the white man came back into power. The Renaissance period is a cultural, artistic, and scientific revival in Europe that took place from the 14th to the 17th century. This is like the 1300s, right? All the way up until now that we're living in, right? It supposedly ended in the 17th century, but we're still living in the time of Esau's rulership, right? For a little season, right? So it says, and it's about to be a wrap. That season is about to be over. The season finale is coming, right? Now skip down to verse 7. And when 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loose out of his prison. That was the Renaissance period, right here during the 13th century. I'm at the 14th century, which is the 1300s. Mainly, it culminated in 1492. That's when he really took hold, right? Satan shall be loosed out of his prison and shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together to battle, the number of whom as the sand of the sea, right? Which that's the time period we in today. That third world war is going to involve Gog and Magog and the rest of these nations, trying to fight against the Lord when he come back and his people. Let me read this in the NLT. It says, he will go out to deceive the nations called Gog and Magog in every corner of the earth. He will gather them together to battle a mighty army as numberless as the sand along the sea. Right, and this is the time we coming in, that third world war. Okay, this really happened, bro. We're still living in biblical times, right? But Esau wants to try to whitewash everything, cover up everything, like the scripture says. And I'll get some precepts off the comment board in a second, brothers. The scripture says in the Salakia. The book of Job 30 and Job 9 and 24. The brother Aria, and I can't be bringing this out a lot. Job 9 and 24. The earth is given into the hand of the wicked. He covereth the faces of the judges thereof. If not, where and who is he? Right, and that's what Esau has done. He covered the faces of the judges. Who the judges? We are the Israelites. Starting off with the Most High, Yahweh, and his only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai, right? Who he made, when you type in God, image of God, and art, right? It's always a so-called white man. This is blasphemy, right? You got images. It's supposed to be the Most High, right? It's supposed to be Esau's a piece of shit. This supposed to be the Most High, right? Or you got that one. They're supposed to be the Most High, so-called white man with long flowing white hair. Nah, nigga, Most High don't look like this, and neither do his son. Ignorantly called Jesus. That's a so-called white man. This ain't the Most High's son, Yahweh Shai. He don't look like this. He ain't never looked like this. But this is blasphemy, right? This is part of his deception. He deceived the nation with this. He covered the face of the judges. If not him, where and who is he? Right? Where and who is he? Right? Because this dude, he's everybody. Esau's everybody except who he's supposed to be, which is that of Esau. Right? This supposed to be the finger of the Most High touching Adam's hand with a micro penis. They got the Most High with a damn negligee and babies surrounding him, supposedly Edomite angels, and touching Adam's hand, right, with the touching his finger, and Adam sitting here with a micro penis. Like, get the hell out of here, bro. This is a straight up blasphemy, but this is all iconoclasm. A lot of these images were redone, particularly during the 1500s, which would be the 14th century, right? The 1500s. This man was the 14th century, the 1300s. The 15th century is the 1400s. The 16th century is the 1500s. Okay, because it's the way they do. A lot of these images were remade, and this is what this devil does. Let me see. Go to some precepts on the comment board. Just bear with me, brothers. I know it's a lot. The water, my brothers. The water. Psalms, brother. GMS 4 Wins posted Psalms 58 and 3. The wicked are estranged from the womb. They go astray as soon as they be born, speaking lies. Exactly. There's no truth in Esau. So even when he calls himself bringing out the truth, he gonna lie about it. He ain't gonna give you the whole truth. Right? John 8 and 44. Ye are of your father the devil, and the lust of your father he will do. He was a liar. He was a murderer from the beginning, and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. Right? When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it. Esau is the father of lies, man. He was the first murderer as Cain, right? They won't even accept that, but it's the truth. Acts 13 and 1 in NLT, it's the brother salvation of the elect. It says, among the prophets and teachers of the church of Antioch, Syria, were Barnabas, Simon, called the black man, right? So we know that Barnabas and Simon, I think that might have been Peter, if I'm not mistaken. That says Barnabas and Simon were called what? The black man. Well, Simon was called the black man. Lucius from Cyrene, Manaen, the childhood companion of the king, right? Herod, the king Herod, Antipas, and Saul. And so, but they won't show you these people as so-called black men. They'll show you to you as so-called white men. And that's nothing more than white supremacy. And it's used to hide and to detract from the, there's another word I want to use. There's a word, crap, I can't remember right now. It was on the tip of my tongue. But contributions to society in worlds, period, right? They want to erase that, right? Says, First Maccabees 3:48, and laid open the book of the law wherein the heathen sought to paint the likeness of their images. Exactly. So when they got in power, they painted their images over our images, right? Because in the scriptures, it clearly tells you that the Most High is a so-called black man. He looks like a so-called black man. His son, his only begotten son, Yahweh Shai, looks just like him, that of a so-called black man. But people have a hard time conceptualizing the scriptures. They ain't got the spirit on them to see it, but it's clearly there. All throughout the scriptures to tell you that the one you really call God and Jesus, whose name is Yahweh and his son name is Yahweh Shai, are so-called black men. Job described himself as being black. He says, my skin is my skin is black because of the famine. Edomite skin don't turn black because of famine. Them niggas just get skinny and paler. You know what I mean? Yahweh Shai's body is described as being burnt in the fire, as so dark as if it burnt in the fire, like polished brass. When you look that word polished brass up, it says copper. Copper is what? Brown. Bronze is brown. Brass is brown until you shine it up. Yeah, the water, my brother. Job 30 and 30. My skin is black upon me, and my bones are burned with heat. But let vocab alone read this precept, and he'll say, no, he was just describing how the famine was happening to him. No, nigga, that's what it is. Ain't no Edomite ever said my skin is black. Ever. Ever, never, ever, never. And I've seen people go through famine before. People, what you call of color, go through famine, and their skin does get black. They had an image of this little boy. They had an image. Let me see if I can find it. They had an image of this little boy. That was suffering the famine, and that little boy's skin, head is right here. The image right here. Why they all about you outside? Right here. And this is what he looked like. This is what he looked like when he was in the famine. This Edomite was feeding him. Look at this shit. Look at this shit. Look, that little boy was suffering famine, right? And his skin got blacker. It got darker. That brown in his skin got darker, right? Then they showed him when he was a little healthier. The Edomite revisited him. He started feeding again, and she's feeding this nigga water like he's some goddamn monkey, right? This is him. They washing him up and shit because of that famine caught him. Look at this one. Look at this one. Look, his skin is black because of the famine, bro. Because of the fucking famine. You see? And this I guess this is this little dude, once he got healthier. Once he got healthy, he looked like a whole different person, bro. He got that glow back to him and everything. But they're not going to tell you that. They're not going to push that. They're going to tell you the white man's a savior. Look at this Edomite. Oh, come on, bro. Look at this Edomite. She here with these J kids, always trying to play the hero, always trying to play the white savior, right? But it's because of their rules and their laws and their prescriptions that these nations are the way they are. right? See? Let me see if any brother said anything on the comment board. Salakia, bro. Just bear with me, brothers. It says, Revelation 4:2. And immediately I was in the spirit, and behold, a throne was set in heaven, and one sat on the throne. It says, and he that sat was to look upon like jasper and sardine stone, and there was a rainbow round about the throne, in the sight unto emerald. Yeah, that's talking about the Lord sitting on the throne and his garments, and he actually had a rainbow of light around him, you know. And then here's another example. So I got this image right here. This man is named his name is John Saxony, or John Elector of Saxony, right? This is a statue that's in Europe somewhere, and this is not a white man. The hair is not that of a so-called white man, it's that of a so-called black man, right? His skin is brown, what you call black today, but it is brown, right? This ain't come from years of dust and smoke and dirt and soot. No, not at all. This is what this man really looked like. But when you go to the images, they paint him as a so-called white man. What white man you know got style like this? Unless he a Jake, right? You know what I mean? But everybody that was somebody, they always make him so-called white. They always make him so-called white. Everybody's so-called white, but he's not. He was a so-called black man, right? This is Black Britain. After several hundred years of falsified racist history, as we all have been taught, there were no blacks in Europe, and those that were there were African slaves, servants, or African charity cases. Black research like our own has forced the lying European albinos to make some grudging minor admissions like these. It says the black and brown royalty and nobility of Great Britain. I'm going to read this. I'm going to read a little bit of this. It says Mackie John, which I love this book. I got this book. I downloaded it. You can download it for free. You ain't even got to purchase it. But I did purchase the book for like $15. But the memoirs of John Mackie gives an excellent description of the nobility of his time, including Queen Anne, William of Orange, right? Charles the First, right? So it says, was a government Mackie John, or John Mackie, was a government agent or spy, author of memoirs of secret services, was a Scotsman of good education, but his parentage or birth, nothing is known. Yeah, right. According to his own account, he came early into the measures of the revolution, and being on the return of King James from Ireland to France, sent to Paris to find out the further purposes of the Jacobites, right? And that, look, this man knew we were Israelites, man. He discovered that the French government intended to send the expedition against England in 1692. So Jake was ruling even up until then. Jake, you know, we had already been coming in America as slaves for damn near almost 100 years. Almost. And he arrived in London with information before James reached his army encampment and at La Hogue, and thus gave the government ample time for preparation against it. On the return of King William to England in October 1693, he was appointed inspector of the coast from the Harwich Dowridge. I'm gonna skip down. It says pages from the memoirs of John Mackie. It says Charles Lennox Duke, right, is the son of King Charles II by the Duchess of Portsmouth, was carried by his mother into France in the reign of King James, and left France in the reign of King William, when he declared himself to be for the religion of it and constitution of his country. He is a gentleman of good nature to a fault, very well bred, have many valuable things in him, is an enemy of business and very credulous, well-shaped, black complexion, much like King Charles, not 30 years old. But then they give you this image right here next to it. This nigga ain't black. This image ain't even real. Fake white portrait of Black Charles Lennox, first Dukes of Richmond of Lennox, 1672 1723, son of King Charles II. And this man gave you a physical description of King Charles and his son. Said that he's black complexion, much like King Charles, not 30 years old. You see? Charles, the second son of King James VI of Scotland, but after his father inherited the English throne in 1603, he moved to England, where he spent much of the rest of his life. He became heir apparent to the English, Irish, and Scottish thrones on the death of his elder brother. In 1612, an unsuccessful, unpopular attempt to marry him to a Spanish Habsburg princess culminated in an 8-month visit. Blah, blah, blah. 2 years later, he married Bourbon Princess Henrietta Maria. You know? And then it says fake white portrait of Black King Charles I. These are all fake. This ain't real. And King Charles was known as what? A black man, a tall black man. And they called him Black Boy. Right? Why would they call an Edomite Black Boy? Because his eyes. That don't make no fucking sense. But these are all Renaissance pictures, supposedly after the original by Van Dyke. Right? It says another one. John Lord Somerset, late Lord Chancellor. I'm gonna skip down. He is a grave deportment, easily and free in conversation, something of a libertine, of middle stature, brown complexion, near 50 years old. But yet they show this image of him. Okay, and this is nothing but white supremacy. They'll have you thinking that anybody that was somebody was so-called white, and they weren't. Right? Right here, another one, Daniel Earl of Nottingham, Secretary of State. He has also an exterior of air of business and an application enough to make him very capable in his habit and manners, very formal, a tall, thin, very black man, like a Spaniard or a Jew, 50 years old, because it was known the Jews were so-called black people back then. All right? But they don't teach you this in high school. You'll never learn this in college. You'll never learn this unless you get, I guess, if you get initiated to some group, right? Or if you wake up to the truth of Yahweh Shem Shai, all these things are going to be shown to you, right? Charles, Duke of Somerset, master of the horse. He is a middle stature, a shape, very black complexion, a lover of music and poetry. Come on, man. And the list goes on. We'll be here all day going through who they call debunking the white lies, man. Saying that the white man was in rulership and he was this and he was that. And he wasn't. He wasn't at all. Not always. Okay. He had a time where he ruled and he fell. And now he's in this time ruling and he's about to fall. And when he goes down, it's going to be all she wrote for this guy. King Charles II was nicknamed the Black Boy. His mother, by his mother, due to his dark hair and complexion. His supporters used the nickname during the English restoration of the monarchy in the 1660s. There you go. Right? Why would his mother, being an Edomite, call him Black Boy? And in the 1600s, if she was an Edomite, don't make no sense. Right? His dark hair and complexion called him what? Black Boy. And it was known for that. So, again, white supremacy is used to erase our memory, the memory of the Israelites. Even biblically, these are all Middle Age images, but biblical images too. From the Most High to his son, to Moses, to all the prophets, right? To Yahushua himself. Come on, bro. They made everybody so-called white, right? But in reality, Jakes was in power. So this has been, I've been on for about an hour, almost an hour. This has been white supremacy used to erase the memory of the Israelites. I pray and hope that you are edified. With that, I'm going to give all praise and honor and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Kakadash. Double honor to the apostles, salutations to the elect. Keep pushing, keep striving. We're almost out of here. Hey, shalom.